It is just before 3:47 a.m., June 26, 2025. In the faint blue light of early morning, Crimea appears almost serene. A low, steady wind brushes the grass. Above, the stars fade behind distant clouds, and the world holds its breath. Somewhere in the dark, dogs bark and distant crickets chirp. Villagers in nearby towns sleep, unaware that history is about to be made just kilometers away. But this fragile peace is about to end. Unbeknownst to most of the world, a battle is brewing in the electromagnetic spectrum. A battle that will not only reshape this night, but may alter the course of the war itself. In the modern age, the lines between physical and digital battlefields blur, and tonight, this invisible war will leave visible scars. At the edge of a fortified Russian air defense position, the S-400 Triumph missile battery stands vigilant. Its radar dishes spin ceaselessly, painting the sky with invisible fingers of energy, reaching out to detect any threat, real or imagined. This technology, said to be the pride of Russian engineering, was designed to defend the airspace over Crimea against anything the West or Ukraine could possibly send. Its presence is not just tactical, it is psychological. A symbol meant to deter, to project power and security to all who witness its reach. What no one at the site realizes, not the radar operators, not the missile crews, not even the officers dozing in their bunks, is that, in a matter of minutes, these very radars will become the target of one of the most daring drone attacks in modern military history. The fate of millions of dollars of technology and the lives of all stationed there will hang on moments, decisions, and split-second reactions. Russia's Iron Dome in Crimea, a fortress of electronics. To truly appreciate what is about to unfold, we must first understand the power and vulnerability of Russian air defense in Crimea. For 3 years, the S-400 batteries have served as the guardians of the western approaches to the peninsula. With radars capable of tracking hundreds of targets and missiles that can strike at altitudes high enough to hit satellites, the S-400 system is, on paper, nearly invincible. The reputation of these systems has shaped the very way Russia fights. They are designed not only to shoot down missiles and aircraft, but to create vast no-go zones, giving Russian forces freedom to maneuver and a sense of absolute air superiority. The battery near Zhikoy is typical of the Russian approach. Multiple overlapping radar systems, the 92N2E Gravestone for mid-range detection, the 91N6E Big Bird for long-range tracking, and a host of launchers and command vehicles, all interconnected by encrypted communications. Beneath camouflaged netting, maintenance crews run routine checks while commanders update situation maps, confident that their position is impenetrable. Supporting the S-400 are 2 Pantsir S-1 self-propelled anti-aircraft systems. Their job? To swat down anything that slips past the primary defenses. The Pantsir, with its rapid-fire autocannons and surface-to-air missiles, is specifically designed to counter threats like cruise missiles and, increasingly, drones. Tonight, those crews will be tested in ways they could never have imagined during training. This fortress of electronics has repelled cruise missiles, jammed Ukrainian radio waves, and fired off a small fortune's worth of interceptor missiles. Its operators have grown confident, perhaps even complacent. The sense of routine, the repetition of drills, the normalcy of high-stakes warfare has dulled the edge of readiness. They expect another quiet night, marked by the familiar drone of radar and the distant static of encrypted radios. A new kind of threat, the swarm in the shadows. Yet war is not static. The most formidable fortress is only as strong as its ability to adapt. In recent months, Ukraine has rewritten the rules of engagement. While Western analysts once marveled at the precision of missile strikes, a new weapon has emerged, the drone swarm. No longer the exclusive tool of superpowers, the drone has become the equalizer, a force multiplier that leverages creativity over brute force. The mastermind behind today's operation is the Ukrainian Beaver project, supported by the low-cost Scythe drones. These machines, assembled in secret workshops from plywood, aluminum, commercial electronics, and lawnmower engines, are the embodiment of Ukrainian ingenuity. Some are built by engineers, others by students and volunteers, each drone carrying the hopes and audacity of a nation under siege. Each drone is expendable, yet every loss inflicts disproportionate fear and cost on the Russians. It is not just the technology that matters. But the doctrine. Ukrainian planners have studied every Russian air defense drill, every pattern in their radar sweeps, every lull in electronic vigilance. Every failed attack before this one has been dissected, lessons learned and implemented, creating a feedback loop that now culminates in tonight's strike. Tonight, a total of 17 drones, 7 Beavers, 10 Scythes are on the prowl. Their mission: annihilate a $500 million S-400 battery, blind the Russian defenders, and send a message that nowhere in occupied Crimea is safe. Each drone has a role, each has a target, and every second of their approach is calculated to maximize chaos. The drone swarm, anatomy of an attack. The lead Beaver drone has been airborne for over 2 hours, sipping fuel as it glides at just 50 meters above the Earth. At that height, it is invisible to high-altitude radars and masked from most defenses by the very curvature of the planet. The mission profile required meticulous planning, navigating around known jamming zones, avoiding towns and villages, timing the approach to coincide with the shift change at the Russian battery. Its wings, slender, painted dull gray, barely whisper against the air. On board, a simple GPS receiver, bought online for less than $20, is complemented by gyroscopes and accelerometers that monitor every jolt and tilt. When GPS fails, as often does over Crimea, a battleground of jamming, the drones rely on onboard cameras, comparing the landscape below to stored satellite images, following rivers and roads like ancient navigators followed the stars. The Scythe drones, while less sophisticated, use the same combination of cheap sensors and rugged redundancy, proving that sometimes quantity and improvisation trumps complexity. Behind the Beavers, 10 Scythes fly in tight formation. They look crude, just boxes with wings, unremarkable except for the deadly warheads they carry. Each drone is expendable, but together they are a wolf pack with one goal: overwhelming the Russian defenses through sheer numbers and clever tactics. The drones maintain a spread over a 3-kilometer front, sometimes climbing to 80 meters, sometimes dropping to 20. This vertical spread forces the Russian radars and gunners to chase targets across multiple altitudes, dividing their attention and diluting their firepower. To the Russian sensors, it is a cloud of confusion, a mosaic of blips, none clearly distinguishable, all moving at slightly different speeds and headings. At this moment, technology and psychology intertwine. The defenders cannot know which drone carries the most dangerous warhead or which will dive first. The uncertainty becomes a weapon in itself, forcing hesitation, splitting focus, and priming the ground for chaos. Russian defenses. Hubris meets havoc. Inside the command vehicle, a Russian operator leans over his glowing screen. The 92N2E radar, nicknamed Gravestone, sweeps the sky, rotating with a mechanical grace, searching for ghosts. Every 12 seconds, the radar completes a scan, looking for anything unusual. Farther back, the 91N6E Big Bird keeps its electronic eye open for high-flying threats, able to see a baseball at 100 kilometers, so long as it isn't flying just above the treetops. The 4 missile launchers, each holding 4 deadly interceptors, are primed for action. In reserve, the Pantsir S-1s stand ready, their autocannons and missiles bristling. In theory, this layered defense should be unbeatable, a wall of steel and silicon no adversary can breach. Tonight, the Russians expect nothing more than the occasional false alarm. What they do not realize is that mathematics, not enemy pilots, will be their undoing. It is not just the machines that are being tested tonight, but also the nerves and judgment of their human operators. Every alert, every blip, every flicker on the radar becomes a potential threat, and in a crisis, seconds can feel like hours. Swarm tactics, breaking the unbreakable. As the clock nears 4:15, the Ukrainian drones execute their attack profile. 7 Beavers climb, gaining a few precious meters for their final dives. 5 sides drop low, hugging the ground. The rest maintain a mid-level approach, ready to react to changing conditions. The swarm is designed not just to attack, but to overload and confuse. The Russian operator blinks as his display lights up. 17 contacts, all moving fast, all at suspiciously low altitudes, spread across 5 kilometers. He frowns, knowing the Pantsir can engage only a handful of targets at once. Even with perfect efficiency, the defenders are outnumbered. 17 incoming threats, 2 Pantsir units, each can handle 3 or 4 at most. It's a classic problem. Too many wolves, not enough shepherds. The Pantsir's engagement range is just 5 kilometers for objects this small. Once inside that bubble, the drones will be upon the battery in under 2 minutes. Each target must be acquired, locked, engaged, and confirmed destroyed before moving to the next. There's no room for mistakes. Every delay is fatal. In the span of a single breath, the entire defense can be unraveled. And above it all hangs the fear of the unknown. Is this the main attack, or just the first wave? Is there something even deadlier lurking just behind, waiting for the defenders to exhaust their ammunition? Chaos unleashed, the shooting starts. The first missile launches from a Pantsir. It races into the pre-dawn sky, homing on a scythe, but the small drone's radar cross-section fools the proximity fuse. The warhead passes harmlessly by. The operator curses and switches to manual control, fingers flying across the console as he tries to catch up with a threat moving faster than the system was ever designed for. The next salvo is better aimed. Tungsten fragments shred the first drone. But for every kill, another slips through the defenses. The remaining drones zig and zag, changing altitude and speed, acting more like living creatures than machines. It is the kind of chaos no simulation ever fully prepared for. Meanwhile, the S-400 launchers are paralyzed, unable to act without precise targeting data from their blinded radars. $1.5 million missiles sit idle, useless against the storm of plywood and plastic. On the ground, some soldiers reach for rifles, taking desperate potshots at the shadows streaking overhead. Within moments, 24 interceptor missiles are spent, 5 drones are destroyed. 12 are still inbound, closing fast, zigzagging and diving to confuse both radars and gunners. It's a battle of wits as much as technology, and for once, brute force is not enough. The final minutes. Russian defenses collapse. It's 4:47 a.m. The Russian operators are now in a full panic. 12 drones, many flying barely above the grass, are less than a minute from impact. The Pantsir switch to autocannon mode, firing streams of 30mm shells, but hitting a drone at this speed and altitude is like trying to hit a dragonfly with a garden hose. Some are hit, but not enough. The sound of cannon fire mixes with shouted orders, alarms, and the distant thump of explosions. In a desperate move, S-400 launchers fire their long-range missiles anyway, but without radar locks, the projectiles miss by hundreds of meters and self-destruct. It is a display of desperation, millions wasted in a matter of seconds. The lead Beaver, undetected and untouched, lines up on the gravestone radar. With a final correction from its optical sensors, it dives, detonating its 20-kilogram shaped charge with surgical precision. The radar, worth $50 million, is blown apart in a split second. Seconds later, another Beaver slams into the backup radar. Scythes streak in from the flanks, targeting the big bird and the launchers themselves. The symphony of destruction unfolds in under a minute. Explosions, fireballs, and the horrific shriek of twisting metal. By the time the smoke clears, the entire air defense position is ruined beyond repair. The aftermath. Victory from the shadows. As the dust settles, the true scale of the disaster becomes apparent. Both 92 N2E radars are gone. The big birds are shattered. 4 missile launchers are burning wrecks. What was once the backbone of Russian air defense in western Crimea is now a graveyard of smoking electronics and melted aluminum. Overhead, 2 Su-35S fighters arrive too late. Their radars find nothing. The radio calls from the ground are panicked, broken by static, as crews flee the inferno. All that remains are 4 towering columns of black smoke and the remains of hundreds of millions of dollars worth of equipment. On Ukrainian screens far away, Kabul 9 operators watch the feed from their drones until the very last signal cuts out. A handful of engineers and pilots, using drones built in garages and kitchen workshops, have shattered the illusion of Russian invincibility. The news spreads quickly across military channels, shaking the confidence of those who once believed in the myth of untouchable air defense. Strategic lessons. When small wins over big. This is not just a story of a successful drone strike. It is a case study in how modern warfare is changing. Adaptation is everything. Russia's vaunted radars, designed to track ballistic missiles, were powerless against low-tech drones. Quantity has a quality all its own. A swarm, even of cheap and expendable weapons, can overwhelm the most expensive defenses. Ingenuity beats brute force. Ukrainian engineers turned off-the-shelf technology into weapons that could slip past layers of high-tech security. The psychological effect is profound. Russian crews now know that nowhere is safe and that their enemies are watching and learning. No doctrine, no matter how advanced, can remain static in the face of innovation. The war is now a contest of adaptation, a race to learn, improvise, and surprise. Geopolitical shockwaves. The world reacts. Satellite photos of the attack spread globally within hours. Russian officials scramble for explanations. State media claim a minor incident, but the reality is too big to hide. Ukraine's allies are emboldened. Military analysts in NATO, Asia, and the Middle East pore over footage, rethinking their own air defense plans. If a few drones can bring down the S-400, what hope is there for any static defense system? Meanwhile, Chinese, Iranian, and other military observers take note, understanding that the days of the invincible fortress are gone. Arms manufacturers and militaries worldwide shift their focus, investing in counter-swarm technology, rethinking the balance between offense and defense, and questioning whether the age of the static air defense system has ended forever. Human cost, the face of modern war. For Russian operators, it's a day of humiliation and fear. For Ukrainian engineers and special forces, it's vindication, a proof of their doctrine and their courage. But for civilians in Crimea, it's a warning. The war is closer than ever. The sky that seemed safe is now a battleground for machines guided by unseen hands. In nearby towns, families awaken to distant booms and pillars of smoke, wondering if tomorrow will bring more of the same. Modern war is no longer confined to front lines. It is everywhere, and everyone, soldier, engineer, or civilian, is touched by its consequences. The future arrives unannounced. June 26, 2025 will be remembered as the morning when the old rules of war died in a field in Crimea. No fortress is truly safe, no radar truly omniscient. When a handful of plastic and plywood drones flying below the radar and guided by human ingenuity can level a billion-dollar defense network, the world must take notice. And somewhere, in the darkness, new teams are already preparing for the next battle, designing drones that fly lower, hit harder, and adapt even faster. The lesson is clear. The side that adapts, that innovates, and that learns with every battle is the side that will write the next chapter of history. In a world of steel, fire, and silicon, sometimes victory comes not with a roar, but with a whisper. The sound of wings in the night, the blink of a red light, and a flash on the horizon.